Today we're turning this into this over the course of 2 years. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another Plant Spotlight. Plant Spotlight is a series where we're looking at one specific plant, and today we're looking at Philodendron Florida Beauty. And we're following the plant's growth journey, and in this instance it has been a 2-year growth journey for the two of us. And then at the end of the video I'm going to kind of wrap it up and address everything that I've learned about this plant over the course of those 2 years. As you saw in the intro, I got this plant as a teeny tiny tissue culture plant, and I feel like we have come a long way. By now it is definitely one of my favorite plants, and it's already a statement piece in my collection. But to make sure that we're all on the same page, let's take it back to Jan from 2 years ago when this whole journey started. Which also means that producing this video took 2 years. So I would really appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up, if you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications, and leave a nice comment down below. Thank you in advance, but let's have a look at Jan from 2 years ago unboxing this plant. Let's have a look at what's in here. Today is Friday. It was in the post all week and they tried to deliver it yesterday. I was home and then they gave me like the little card to collect it from the post office. So I was a bit pissed off because it spent another day in this box and it really didn't have to, but it is what it is. By the way, it's really nicely packaged as well. So it's the company is called Flora Magnifica. It's not sponsored. They don't know I ordered from them. I paid for it with my own money. It is a tiny plant. You guys know I love getting a tiny plant and growing it to maturity myself. So I thought, why not record all of this and show you the whole process of me getting a plant and then onboarding it into my home and trying to get it to establish and grow well in my environment as soon as possible. So here it is. It's so tiny, I need to really come closer, I think. But it is a tiny Philodendron Florida Beauty. What a beauty, mate. Where are you? Isn't this just the most adorable? It's so tiny. Oh my god, I love this. So they give you a little care guide for your little tissue cultured plantlets. Me, however, I'm gonna do my own thing. And whatever I've done with the El Choco worked a treat. So I'm just planning on repeating the same process. So I don't really want to introduce more shock to the plant because it was just in a box. It's a tiny plant, so it's quite vulnerable. So really what I want to do right now is I just want to pop this in my IKEA cabinet as soon as possible, because the IKEA cabinet has pretty much perfect conditions for it to thrive in. So I'll pop it in there first. I'll let it, establish itself in there, overcome all of the shock. And then, I can see that there's a new leaf already pushing out. I suppose once that new leaf comes out, fully unfurls, and I can start seeing another leaf coming, I know that it's happy, and that's probably when I'm gonna plan on repotting it from this teeny tiny pot as well. It's a quick root check, and you can see there's some tiny roots there. So I'm gonna do 0 with this. It doesn't need watering because the medium still has enough moisture. It wasn't sent bare rooted, so I don't need to rehydrate it in water. It looks super healthy. I inspected the leaves and I can't see any signs of pests. So I'm gonna take the risk. Such a risk taker. And I'll just pop it straight into my IKEA cabinet. Oh, it's gonna get the prime position up here. Oh my god, look how cute it is! Alright, fingers crossed. Alrighty, and we're back. It's been 2 weeks since I popped this into my IKEA cabinet. And hang on, this leaf over here was the one that it was just pushing out, so it's kind of like a really nice half-half, and there's already another leaf unfurling as we speak. So I think it's time for me to actually investigate what's going on in here. And I actually just watered that today, so it's pretty wet in here, but wet moss is really easy to remove, so That's a better solution than keeping it really dry when trying to free it up. So I'm just trying to free all of the roots from the moss. If it's a larger plant, I'm usually not that delicate, but because this plant is so tiny, maybe I should have waited a little longer. Anyway, too late now. Alright, I think that's good enough. Look at this teeny tiny see-through pot, it's so cute. I saw this at AJ's randomly. It was just like on this pile of like pots, and I was like, AJ, what is that? I need it ASAP. I'm going to give her a mix that is similar to the water retention of moss. So I'm going to use tree fern fiber because it's like still a really small plant with really small roots. Like I can't give her a really chunky aeroid mix out of the sudden. But there is a little bit of bark in here and there's a little bit of perlite in here just to give it a little bit of aeration. And I should really do this over here. And I'm not going to compress this at all. I'm just going to flake it over here. It can stay in here for a little while, like at least a month or two. And then once I have visibility of some roots on the outside, I can start giving it, or I can pop it into a regular 10 centimeter pot that I usually start my plants off with. Alright, tiny pot, but I still ended up getting really messy, and we will check in when there's something for me to update you on. See you soon. And we're back. It's been exactly 1 month and my Florida Beauty has grown quite nicely. So I just wanted to give you a really quick update. So I'm pretty sure this would have been the last leaf that unfurled when I got it, which means it has then had this leaf as well as this beautiful half and now this leaf. Now there is already the next one coming. See this little thing sticking out? I am, however, a bit concerned that it's going full variegated. It's getting progressively more and more variegated. So let's see. But there's also some root growth. It's showing there. Some small roots. They're finding their way into the pot. So yeah, she's happy and I'll put her back into the IKEA cabinet because whatever I'm doing is clearly working. Alrighty, and we're back. It has only been 3 weeks since the last update, but it is growing so well and so quickly. I wanted to update you. Let me come closer. The first leaf, or like the last leaf that it came with, was this one over here. Hello, focus. This leaf over here. It has since grown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is really not wanting to work. 5, and it's working on its 6th one over here already. Can you see all of these cute little roots? And you can also see some roots within the pot itself. So it's honestly so small. I need to bring it so close and then the camera has a hard time focusing. But I couldn't be happier with the growth that this plant has produced so far. And given that all of these cute little roots are there, I'm having a really hard time looking at all of these roots and not giving it a moss pulse. So I want to give it a moss pulse straight away. You can also see it wants to climb, right? You see how it kind of grows upright? Definitely wants to climb, so I think this plant is really going to be taken to the next level if I provide it with a moss pulse now. So let's do it. I want to give it a small grow vertical prop, mini prop I think they're called. And it's the exact same process that I've done with my El Choco as well. I put it on one of these first, and then once I kind of outgrew that one, I then just cut out this bit in a bigger moss pot and just slid it in there. So that's gonna be the goal over here as well. The best conditions are within my IKEA cabinet. So I want to keep it in there. Now, the main limitation I've got within my cabinet is size. It's really packed at the moment and I'm getting more plants shipped, right? So I need to make sure that I'm keeping it as small as possible. I bring that a bit closer. I hope you can see some of the roots that have grown. Now let me choose which side to put the moss pole on. I'm going to choose the side that has the most roots at the moment. Or no, I'm going to choose... Which way am I going to do this? Okay, yes, I'm going to choose the side that has the most roots at the moment. So like this. And then I pop this in here. And then I'm just going to fill in the rest with aeroid mix. I don't want to disturb the root system too much. Actually, I should have really filled this in with aeroid mix first. Okay, that's good enough. Love this little pot, I'll definitely keep that, it's so cute. Now as the last thing, I've got these little pieces of wire that I just bend into a U shape, and I'll take it and I'll pin my plant to the moss pole. Now it doesn't need that, it will find its way into the moss pole regardless, but I'm just giving it an easier time. I'm bringing the roots slightly closer to the moss pole so that they can find their way into the moss pole as soon as possible. And the leaves will kind of readjust now as well. Okay, there we go. And I will touch base with you when there's an update. Alrighty, and we are back. It's been about 3 weeks that I potted this plant on its grow vertical pole, and it's been about 3 months overall since I received this plant in the mail. So I thought let's have a close-up look and see what's happening. So that was the latest leaf, and unfortunately it's purely variegated, but YOLO. What I actually want to do is I kind of want to move this leaf to this side, because see how this plant is now growing via Caterfill. This is the Caterfill with the new leaf. I want this to make contact with the pole, and the leaf was kind of in the way. So this should go as close as possible to the pole so that the roots can start growing into the moss pole. I hope that is okay visible on the camera. Here are roots going into the pole, and you can already see them coming out here. Is this gonna focus ever? Here. I'll just pop it back in there and just gotta stay patient. And we are back. It has been 2 months since the last clip, and to be honest, not all too much has happened. Let me give you a close-up. So, these leaves are all new since the last video, and they're really beautiful. I mean, I love this one, and I love this one as well. It's a little deformed at the top, not sure why, but the variegation and the pattern is beautiful. Not too sure if it had this one in the middle already. But what happened since the last time is it actually dropped a lot of leaves, and I'm not entirely sure why. It could be because a lot of these bottom leaves were also fully variegated. But it has grown some healthy roots down here. I hope this is going to focus. Yep. And you can see there's more roots coming out of the stem wanting to go into the pole. So sometimes I just take a little piece of wire and kind of just push it in there to get the stem closer to the pole. So yeah, ultimately not all too much has happened. Again, one thing I don't appreciate about growing a lot of my plants in the IKEA cabinet is that the leaves are pointing upwards, because that's where the light is coming from. I think it would be much nicer if they point forward, but that will change as soon as I take it out of the IKEA cabinet. Not too much update. Honestly, the conditions haven't even changed. I'm not too sure what exactly happened for it to stop growing that fast. But it's still growing, it's still happy, so I'm not too fussed. I have to admit, I have been really slack with the updates. So the last update was at the end of October, it's now middle of March, so a good 4.5 months or so, so apologies for that. I swear I took an update somewhere in those 4.5 months, but I can't find the footage, so... Well, it is what it is, but this is what the plant looks like now. So really good. I think the last one you would have seen is probably this one over here. So we've had some decent leaves in between. We've had this beautiful, like almost half-half. We had one that was super variegated. We had one that was not so variegated, and then this one, to be honest, just looking at this over here, it looks like thrips damage, and I've just noticed that. I know that some of the other plants in my cabinet had some sort of thrips issues as well, but not like an issue, just a little bit. So there is a new leaf coming out over here, so let's just see if that shows any thrips damage or not. Or if the thrips are just going to eat the whole thing. I don't know. I don't think I've treated this plant, to be honest. I think there was, what was the plant? There was one plant in my cabinet that had thrips. Or was it spider mites? No, it was thrips. An anthurium had thrips, and I used Comforter spray. I don't think I treated this one. Anyway, that is what it is. It's growing. Can't be all too bad. Now also, I just wanted to show you the moss pole. Decent root system within the moss pole. And also the first roots actually pushing out the top of the moss pole. So I reckon I'll let this plant unfurl this latest leaf, and then it is spreading a little bit too much for my IKEA cabinet as well. I'll probably then upgrade it to a larger pole and also move it out of my IKEA cabinet, and well, I'll take you along. But I think I'll just let this leaf develop, and yeah, also I don't have time today to do that, so it works. Alrighty, so I'll see you soonish. Hello everybody, it's been 1 month since the last update, and we are I think in month 10 of this overall project of growing this Florida Beauty, and I should have really gotten on top of it a little while earlier, but better late than never. We got to do something with this plant. It is getting too large for my IKEA cabinet, and as part of giving it a new home, I would also love to give it a larger pot and a pole extension. So today is going to be some substantial happenings. So let me show you everything first, and really annoying, I get this direct sun coming in, so I hope it's not too glary, but you should see lots and lots of roots pushing up against the back of this pole. So a majority of the roots would be within the pole. There are some decent roots within the pot as well, of course. So happy days. You can see that this plant, I don't know if you can see this on my viewfinder, it's very hard. You can see that this plant is thoroughly rooted into the pole, and you can see the transformation in leaf shape from this to, I think this is the latest leaf over here. Very pretty, and I'm very happy with the level of variegation. I had some more yellow ones, I had some more green ones, I had even some half ones over here. So very happy with the progress overall. Hello my darling, are you the star of the show? Excuse me, mister, would you mind vacating the table? I know I did find the biggest table I could find, didn't I? You want to be the star of the show? You can look, you can sniff, but you cannot eat, hey? I said you cannot eat. Brad, by the way, is actually not really interested in my plants at all. He is only interested in them when he feels slightly jealous of the attention that I give them. Come on, do you want to go here maybe? Come on, you can lie here. Go here. This is a good spot for you. Whee! Good boy. Looks good. Don't have any desire to like clean it up any further or whatever, because what we're actually going to do is something that I've done with my El Choco before, is we are going to upgrade the moss pole. This plant and the pole at this stage, they're one unit, right? Like, I don't differentiate between the plant and the moss pole. They're thoroughly interconnected. I mean, you've seen that root system. So for me to upgrade this plant to a bigger pole, I'm not actually taking it off the pole, I'm just, you'll see, I'll slide it into a bigger pole, if that makes sense. Anyway, you'll see in a sec. Now, this plant has been really easy going. I haven't really done much for it because it lives in my IKEA cabinet, and the IKEA cabinet is such a high humidity environment. Hang on, I like this moment where I peel this off. Oh, look at that. Maybe now you can see the roots a little bit better. Oh, this bloody sun. Yeah, less reflection now, huh? So you can really see the moss pole being an extension of the root system and taking roots and then funneling them into the pot. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, because it's in a high humidity environment, I do very, very little for it. I every now and then go in with a spray bottle and just spray the top of the moss pole and let the water drip through, but because it's plastic backed and in the high humidity environment, this basically never dries out. I reckon I could get away watering this once a fortnight, so once every 2 weeks, but realistically I probably water it once every week or so, but just a little bit, just spray a little bit more so it never really dries out. But if I would water it thoroughly, I reckon once a fortnight would be sufficient, and that's just because of the plastic backing and the high humidity environment. If I would have that on a pole that's not plastic backed in a really dry environment, I might have to water this every 5 days or so, right? So it really depends. There is no hard and fast rule. So I do not want to break any of this apart. I want to keep this exactly as it is. This is one unit. What I want to do though, I want to take this and kind of slide it into here and then fill in the gaps with more moss. So I'm gonna cut out the exact wire. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so 4 times 22. That's easy. That's my mom's birthday. And I cut out the bits. Now I just need to reconnect all of this using some cable ties. So I'm really just sliding this into here where I just cut out the mesh. And now I'm just cable tying this. Doesn't need to be done in all too many spots, just a few here and there until I feel like this is somewhat secure. Okay, after I cut the cable ties, I always twist them inside because the sharp edges could hurt some of the newly developing leaves. Ta-da! Here we go. Now this plant is also kind of a little bit away from the pole. Now I want to use a cable tie to just get it a little bit closer, but at the same time I don't want to like squish any of the existing roots, so I need to be careful with that. But I don't like how unstable it kind of looks on the pole. I know it obviously has a lot of root system, but I'm worried that if I would shake this, for example, which is certainly the plan eventually, that I would kind of just shake the plant, like that the roots would rip. That makes sense. So I'm gonna give this a little extra support here by just cable tying the plant to the pole. Okay. Now I'm just gonna fill in the gaps with more moss. Stick it in from the bottom and use my trusted chopstick again to kind of just poke it in place until I'm happy. I think a chopstick is one of the most useful gardening tools, honestly. Here we are. Happy days. I filled this pole quite a lot. So you can see it's kind of bulging out a little bit because ultimately the more room for roots, the more potential for this plant. And it is not the fastest climber. I mean, you've seen, well, we're 10 months into this process and it hasn't climbed all too far. I don't think it's going to outgrow its pole anytime soon. So yeah, have to get rid of this bottom leaf. It's not gonna make it. It's gonna be stuck in the pot, but just one of them. I'll put it all the way to the bottom of the pole, and now I'm gonna give it some aeroid mix. Tutorial for my aeroid mix is always linked in the description, as well as a link to these Grow Vertical moss poles as well, and I do have a discount code, and Tim ships internationally. But at the end of the day, it's really just a wire mesh with a plastic backing, and you can easily get creative and kind of come up with a solution yourself. I've seen people make them from repurposed juice bottles or placemats or whatnot, you know, as long as basically the principle here is that the plastic is gonna ensure that there's more water retention. That's it then, right? Let's peel off the sticker so AJ doesn't get angry at me. There you go. That is it. I'm gonna give this some water and I'm gonna use my GT Foliage Focus, which is also linked in the description. And we'll see each other at the very latest in about 2 months' time when this 12 months transformation is over. But if there's anything thrilling happening in between, I'll make sure to check in with you. See you soon. here we are. It's been 12 months. Now, a couple of things I want to address before we look at the plant in a little bit more detail. First of all, I think now maybe, I don't remember how many months ago that was, but a few months ago, I said to you that I think there's a bit of thrips damage. Let me show you that. So this was the last leaf in question over here, and you can see it's kind of a little bit deformed. The subsequent leaf after that is this one over here, which is perfectly fine, followed by this beautiful leaf over here, and then this leaf over here just unfurled this week. So it's got a bit of inflating to do, but it shows beautiful variegation and beautiful mature features. What I did do is I gave it a nice spray of Comforter spray. Just one application was sufficient, and I haven't seen any further damage since. I can't confirm that it was thrips, I haven't seen any, but just from the deformation of the leaf, I think that was it. A few plants in my cabinet had thrips, but one of the Comforter spray applications seemed to have done the trick, and no subsequent leaves have shown any sort of damage. So that's good, but it set back the plant a little bit. I feel like I'm pretty relaxed on the whole pest thing, right? Like I don't freak out about it anymore. Most of the times, like my plants seem to kind of cope with pest issues themselves. If your plants are happy and healthy, they usually can kind of cope with it a little bit. Of course, if your plants are weak, then they are more susceptible to, absolutely getting destroyed by pests. They can't really fight back. So I don't know, I feel like most of the times these issues kind of sort themselves out, but when I do see something like that, I just quickly do a Comforter spray and then, one application, and it seems to be just fine. So I'm nobody to freak out about pests or potential signs of pests. I'm kind of pretty chilled about it. I just accept it as a constant. I accept it as something that can always go wrong, and I suppose that's comes with the nature of growing plants. It is what it is. Anyway, so I wanted to address that one first. Now, the other thing I wanted to address while we are here is after I repotted it to the larger pole and I put it outside of the IKEA cabinet, I also dropped the plant by accident. I kind of just elbowed it off my desk, it went flying, and two really beautiful leaves, like around about the size of this, I think, just completely snapped off. So things go wrong, sometimes. Actually, I hardly ever drop or hardly ever have plants falling. I think people think my plants are just falling left, right and center because they're so tall. It actually hardly ever happens, and it happened to a plant that isn't even top heavy at all. This is very bottom heavy. And it was really just me being negligent or me being a bit careless. Shit happens, and it is what it is, right? Now, since the last update, the plant has gotten used to my ambient temperatures, and let me just put a little screenshot of those in here. So this over here is a screenshot of the average temperature and humidity in my office versus the average temperature and humidity in my IKEA cabinet. So over the last 2 months, it went from this environment into this environment, and it's just fine. And I think that is due to a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't think this Florida Beauty ever needed the really, really high humidity conditions that I had to offer it in the IKEA cabinet. It's not that fast anyway, so I think these conditions actually suit the plant in itself better. And then secondly, these conditions are still very high, right? This is still a decent humidity for just an open ambient room, right? All right, that's all I really have to say about the last couple of months. Hello, and we are in year 2 of the journey, and I feel like I'm finally finding the groove with this plant. It is definitely growing the most beautiful leaves, one after the other. Exactly, Brad. Look at this beautiful half here. Now the newest one is still really soft and inflating, but you can really see it maturing. Look at these more distinct lobes now, obviously the size, still beautiful variegation. I think I'm really lucky with the variegation. So I'm really happy, but it's been a bit of a journey. The plant was first over there. Yes, it's close to dinner time, you can tell, right? 5 more minutes, darling. 5 minutes to dinner. So so cute. It was first over there in front of a mother grow light, but it was right under my big Adansonia and Mandula. They were kind of shading it, and it was kind of, it didn't really have room to unfurl. I then had it under this Soltec light over here, but it was quite far away from the light, I believe. And I now moved it into my office in front of a mother light again, because also I don't want these leaves to point just up. I want these leaves to kind of point forward. So ideally I would love the light source to come from the front. So obviously with changes in positions, I'm setting back the plant a little bit, or I'm introducing a little bit more shock, but you know, at the end of the day, I do it all for aesthetics purposes, so no point in growing a plant if I'm just not happy with the spot or the way that it looks in that spot. Also notice that some of these fully yellow bits are going a little brown. I don't think there's really much I can do about it. I don't think my conditions are terrible, but I think it's just inevitable. I heard that yellow variegation is worse than white ones even, so anyway, but I just wanted to give you a really quick update because I feel like I'm really in the groove over here with this plant. Despite moving it around, it hasn't really skipped a beat with me. It's not been as much of a roller coaster as the first year has been so far. It's steadily climbing, but slowly. I don't really foresee any work having to be done over here. I reckon this is just going to sit in my office at least for another 2-3 months until I maybe need to consider upgrading the pot. But it's growing slow but steady. I'm not complaining. As long as it's giving me this beautiful variegation, I am very happy. But hopefully I didn't jinx anything. Touch wood, but time will tell. Hello my friends. We haven't seen each other in a couple of months, and I think my Florida Beauty has grown so well. I think this leaf over here is the prettiest it has ever grown. Now I've noticed that a lot of the leaves that it grew over the last few months were kind of a bit floppy. They don't seem to have like the oomph, you know? And I think it was just not getting enough light in my office. So I moved it right under this grow light over there now. So it is getting light from above, which is not my preference. You guys know I love when plants receive light from the front so that the leaves look more like this rather than this, but so be it. I think with this plant it's okay because it grows quite lush at least, right? So at least there isn't all too much, like if you're looking at it from the front, you still can hardly see the moss pole, right? You still mainly see leaf, whereas with some plants, especially if they have large internodal spacing, you just end up seeing too much of the pole. Anyway, I think with the light coming from the front in the office, also the plant wanted to run away to the front a little bit more. Hopefully the light coming from above will help with that, and will make sure that the plant has an easier time attaching into the pole by itself. However, the main problem with this plant right now is that it is extremely front heavy because obviously all of these leaves are dragging it forward. Now it is far from being root bound. I can see a little root here, a little one there, a little bit more root action going on at the front over here, specifically at the bottom down there. So I'm not repotting it because it's root bound, I'm repotting it because of stability issues. I just don't want this plant to fall over and ruin all of the beautiful progress that I've made over, it's almost been 2 years. I think in 4 months we've got our 2-year anniversary. Actually, let me show you now. You can see them a little bit better. The mix looks really good as well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, so I'm not even going to disturb the roots. I'm going to keep them as they are. I'm going to reuse the old mix as well. However, this earliest leaf over here I will sacrifice, and now I'll just top it up with more aeride mix. So yeah, it will stay under this grow light for, I reckon, the next 4 months. I think I really like this position over there. It looks so good, and finally I found the position where I get to appreciate the plant a lot as well. Like I just get to look at it and it looks so beautiful. I feel like before I was kind of not hiding it, but I couldn't really find the perfect spot for it without it getting swallowed by other plants, or without other plants, like, you know, stealing the attention. But I think in that spot down there, it really gets to shine now. At least in real life. On camera it looks a bit too bright actually, but it's okay. Sweet, that's it. I will go ahead and water that in. I will probably should put a bit more of a backwards tilt on it. I can do that now. Alrighty, I also gave it a slight backwards tilt just to further counteract the leaves facing forward, but the larger base, as you can see, is already making it more stable. I will also put it in a heavy decorative planter. That gives it further stability. It also gives the root system darkness and so on. So and it makes it look better. So I'll go look for a spare pot somewhere, and I obviously water this in, and then we'll see each other when there's more updates to share. I don't really think much is going to happen with this plant. I don't think I will have to put an extension on this plant before we hit the 2-year mark, so I'll see you then. I do not recall where this plant was before, but anyway, it is now over there. It looks very bright on camera. It's not actually that bright, but it is definitely a lot of light, and the plant seems to really like it. I get to look at it all the time, so I'm really, really happy. And we've had a few nice leaves. I mean, we've had a fully variegated leaf, which is great, but not very sustainable. So we prefer these sort of leaves with a little bit of green, and then the newest one is coming in now. You can slightly see, you know, it's going to be like half-ish, so it's not going to be fully white, which is good. You can also see that the stem has actually significantly increased in thickness over the last few leaves, which is great. I am tempted to push this further in, but I'm just gonna try and see if the plant wants to do its own thing without me having to manipulate it. Because what happened before, it's gonna be hard to show you. See how the stem over here split a little bit? That was actually because right under where it splits over here, I had a cable tie. And the cable tie was a little bit too tight, or well, it wasn't at the time of putting it there, but then over time the stem thickened up and it got a little bit squeezed and it kind of split itself, so not happy. But yeah, so I'm trying to avoid using cable ties for now, let it do its own thing, but we'll find out, right? Now I think it's only about maybe 2 months until we're hitting the 2-year mark, and we're still on the first grow vertical moss pole. Obviously this little stitch was here, but that's really good. Now let's have a look at the pot. I can actually see hardly any roots. You see a few down here, if it's not too glary. At the very bottom of the pot you can see a few. So nothing crazy actually, but if you're looking at the roots within the pole, like this one over here, this one, these ones going in now, that's looking more promising and hard to see with the green backing, but you should be able to see some darker discolorations over here. So I mean, there's gotta be roots somewhere for this plant to look so beautiful, and it's certainly not the pot, so they're in the extension. Anyway, just a really quick update, because I think she's just looking really nice, she's growing nice. She's an easy grower at the moment. I have very little issues with her, so probably editing Jan will remember eventually where I was before, but I don't remember right now. I move my plants around too frequently, specifically as I'm doing winter prep, everything has moved. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to wrap up year 2, because I think we're going really well. Well, let's see how much more this plant can grow until we're there. How stunning is this plant? It has grown so well over the last few months. I have changed its position. To be honest, I don't even know which position it was in before. I think I really need to look back at my videos. It is now living right over there. Looks dark right now because I turned these lights off for filming. Let me show you. It is absolutely loving it over there. This has just finished hardening off, and I mean, how stunning. I need to come a bit closer, huh? How stunning is this leaf over here? And it's already pushing out the next leaf over here. So it is not skipping a beat whatsoever. This one looks actually very green, so it's not bad. Actually, I'd kind of like even having full green leaves, because full green, full white, half-half. I just love the variety. How good would it be if I just have a green leaf over here, or like with little variegation? I do want a little bit more green in this plant, but I'm also more than happy with these half-halves. Actually, I can't get over this leaf. This is so stunning, especially with the red petioles and the red veining. Anyway, we're not just here to talk about this plant and how sexy it is. We're also here to do a bit of work because we are nearing the end of the 2-year video. We've just got a little bit under 1 month to go, and I hope I'm gonna get another leaf after this one. Let's see how fast it grows. But my main concern over here is that it's getting dangerously close to the top of the moss pole. In itself, not an issue, right? Because it's not climbing really fast, but the top of the moss pole also dries out first. And I'm going on holidays next week, and I want to kind of not have anybody help me out with my watering. I'm only away for 1 week, which should be fine, but the top of the moss poles are my concern. If a plant hasn't reached the top of the moss pole, not a concern. But if the plant reached the top of the moss pole, specifically if it's unfurling a new leaf at the top of the moss pole, I would rather it not dry out. So I thought maybe let's just do the extension now. I'll have to do it eventually anyway, and then with the extension I have more water retention capacity because I have more moss, and then the plant isn't at the top of the moss pole. So I've got the additional moss pole that can dry out over the course of the week while I'm gone, and by the time I come back this part should still be moist. So I'm doing the extension a little bit early just for my own convenience. Now it's already in a 20cm pot, so I don't need to upgrade the pot, but we can spy on some roots. Yep, definitely some really nice healthy roots visible here in the pot. Yep, there we go. There we go, everywhere, happy days. But nothing crazy, right? So you can tell, I mean, this is such a beautiful large plant with mature leaves now. There's no way that this plant is supported by these 2.5 roots in the pot. It's obviously based on the roots in the moss pole, and we can see them pushing up against the backing a little bit. It's not opaque, so it's a maybe a little bit. You can kind of guess where they are. Let me grab a moss pole real quick. Got one. Let me fill it with moss first, actually. That makes life a bit easier. Because the plant grows so slowly, or not grows slowly, because it climbs so slowly with such short internodal spacing, I really want to fill this moss pole quite thoroughly. Because the more media I can put in the moss pole, the more room for roots. So if it's a plant, let's say like a verrucosum, that has a really disappointing root system and grows with really large internal spacing, I don't need to put a whole lot of moss in here because the plant will never grow that many roots anyway, and there's just like 30 centimeter intervals between nodes where nothing will grow into the moss pole, right? So I'd just be wasting a whole lot of moss. But over here, the plant will thoroughly take advantage of every piece of moss that I put in there. So let's put as much moss in here as possible. Or well, let's not say as much as possible, because you also don't want to compact it too much. Aeration is also important, but on the more dense side. I often get asked by people, why do you fill the moss pole all the way if the plant hasn't reached yet? It's that argument about the drying out that I just mentioned earlier, right? I'll just create less work for myself. See how I really make this bulge out, right? It's not caving in, it's really bulging out. So it's densely packed with moss, but not too dense that the roots couldn't penetrate it at all. As always, when I extend my Grow Verticals, Grow Vertical is just a company, by the way, and they're always linked in the description. So I overlap them by 2. And with the second extension, I normally don't really add a garden stake. I think only really with the third extension is when it has the additional stability requirement. If I do it now, before the plant reaches the top over there, I can kind of just operate over here without having to worry about ruining the plant. Or like ruining the newest growth or something like that. So it's just a little bit easier, and ultimately it's not any more work. I just do the work a little bit earlier through both of the plastics and then both of the meshes at the front as well. I've done this hundreds of times by now, so of course it gets easier with time. But see how the plant just does not want to go towards the moss pole naturally? It just, I'm not too sure why, but I want it to go there. So I'm gonna help it out a little bit using a cable tie, and honestly this is actually the only plant I do this for. Even the Florida Ghost that's positioned right next to it should have similar-ish DNA, gets the same light. I don't have to do this for. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just very, very gently tightening these cable ties. It's just one big cable tie made out of two. That's good enough. See how there's a little bit of a gap between the cable tie and the stem? Whoop, there you go. So there's a bit of flexibility. It's a bit loose. I could have also done this in 2-3 stages. I could have just tightened it now and then tomorrow tighten it a little bit more, but I wasn't really worried about snapping it. But I'm much happier with how it looks now. But I can maybe tighten it a little bit more next week or something like that. But yeah, anyway, the leaf over here obviously now get pushed up a little bit by my tightening motion, so it's gonna have to come down over time. These have such long petioles, huh? Anyway, we'll see each other at the end of the month, and let's see what this maybe not even the last leaf is going to give us. Alrighty, and here we are. I mean, it's only been 1 month, but we've had a few things happen actually. Let's focus on the positive news first. This is that newest leaf. Maybe I'll bring you a bit closer. That is that newest leaf that was still unfurling. You can see it's still kind of soft, so it definitely has a little bit of expanding to do. I don't think it's going to get much bigger in size, but I think it's just going to fill in a little bit and have a little bit more structure. So it's going to get a little prettier still, but you can already see the variegation starting to kick in. Basically this entire right half is going to be variegated, so that's going to be really fun. The pole is also a little dry. I just gave it some water, so I think the plant is also maybe a little bit dehydrated. Oopsie. It's already working on the next cutter fill, and there's already a new leaf pushing out over here. So it is definitely growing leaves in very, very rapid progression at the moment, but each leaf actually takes quite a long time to push out of the cutter fill, unfurl, expand, and then kind of harden off as well. So the whole process is almost taken a whole month. So by the time it finished hardening off, the next one is already coming out, which is great, right? That's the sort of rapid progression of leaves that will enable me to turn this into a really, really nice lush pole. And overall, if we're looking at this whole 2-year journey, I think there was definitely a significant increase in speed of growth around the 18-month mark. Now, there might be multiple reasons for that. Well, that was 6 months ago, and 6 months ago we were in the growing season, so best opportunity for this plant to really grow fast. But right now we are actually in the worst part of the year. We just had the shortest day last week, and it has been unreasonably cold. Which we're going to get to in a sec. And it's still growing really rapidly at this stage, right? So summer might not actually be the explanation. Maybe maturity is an explanation, obviously, at some stage once the plant has more leaves and is more established, has a larger root system, it might just grow faster. But usually, because with maturity plants grow larger leaves, I actually notice a reduction in speed of growth, but I get an increase in leaf size. So I don't think that's maybe the explanation. I think the explanation is the light. Ever since I moved it, and it's still positioned under this grow light over there, I dimmed it right back and pushed it away so it doesn't interfere with our filming, but it gets quite a lot of light over there, to the extent that on camera it actually just looks completely blown out. In real life it looks more acceptable. But I think the really high light from my Soltec aspect, and it's linked in the description as well, that has really triggered something in this plant, and it's growing much faster now. The only downside to the light is that the light comes from above, so a lot of these leaves are facing more upwards. I would rather have them all face this way, right? That would be more stunning. But you know what, that is also something I can always change in hindsight. If I would change the position of the light now, all the leaves would change retrospectively, right? But at least it's grown so far, and I think it still looks fine because it grows with such short internodal spacing. The leaves pointing up isn't making the pole look empty, right? It still looks really, really lush. And I do also think that with maturity, as these leaves are getting a little bit bigger and heavier, they naturally want to droop a little bit more, so then it's maybe not so much of an issue. Now, We're coming back to the rest of the conditions in a sec, but I quickly wanted to address the bad news because I'm sick of it. You can see an empty petiole over here. That was actually the fully variegated leaf that you saw in the last update. Now, I noticed it going brown when I came back from holidays last week, and then every day it got more and more brown, kind of like browning like this. So I thought, oh my god, maybe it's because it's fully variegated, it's just going to say goodbye. But then it declined super rapidly, like much faster than I would expect. So I thought, oh, maybe it was cold-induced damage, because while I was on holidays, we've had really, really cold days, and my housemate was away for a couple of them as well. So we didn't heat the house. So normally this room never really goes below 16 or 15 maybe on a really cold night. But we've had down to 10 degrees in this room. But no other plant was really impacted. Actually, one other plant had a bit of cold damage. But it seemed kind of odd for just one leaf. And it wasn't even the newest leaf or something like that. So I had a closer look and I noticed this. So it must just be that at some stage when I did my holiday preparation and I took all of my plants out and I watered them all and I put them back and so on, that I slightly snapped the petiole, like that little sinus where the petiole meets the leaf, and I suppose that's why it then declined so quickly, because it was actually just snapped off. It was just holding on by a thread. So I just completely ripped it off, and then, you know, over time the petiole is now also going really soft, because the petiole knows that it doesn't have a leaf attached to it anymore, which is actually a question I get quite often, like where do you cut a leaf when you cut it off? I usually would cut like the middle of the petiole somewhere over here, and then this little stump of the petiole that's left will go yellow really quickly, and then I can just very conveniently peel it off. Anyway, so that's a bit unfortunate, because that kind of filled this little gap over here. So now we have this little gap here, which I don't like, but I think this leaf maybe, oh no, I don't know. Hopefully this leaf can fill that gap. But you know, you win some, you lose some. Working with plants comes with lots of challenges and setbacks, and we just got to accept that. Now let's have a quick look at the root system. We can definitely see lots and lots of healthy roots in there. Nice, but nothing crazy, not root bound at all. So it must be that the roots are within the pole, and yeah, I don't think you can really pick that up on camera, but I can certainly see lots of roots in the pole there. Can also see lots of roots going into the pole, especially from the newest nodes, which is always a good sign. Hopefully you can see all of these roots going in here. I always want to make sure that every single new node starts attaching to the pole, you know, and contribute to the root system. So that is really great news, but it's a bit dry. So yeah, I just gave it a liter of water, but it still needs to drip down, I think. Obviously throughout the updates we've already learned quite a bit, but let's kind of summarize it. So I think overall this is a very rewarding plant to grow, right? It's been 2 years and it looks pretty good, despite having had quite a lot of challenges. I don't think the first year was super successful in growing this plant. I think the second year was definitely much more successful, and the saying is, in the first year they sleep, in the second year they creep, and in the third year they leap. So if that was the creeping year, I can't wait for the leaping year, right? I think I expect really big things from this plant in year 3. So despite the ups and downs, and it was a bit of a roller coaster in year 1, I do think I have a really beautiful specimen to show for, despite how small the plant was when I first got it. But because the plant was so small when I first got it, it was kind of not a big space commitment. And it wasn't a big space commitment up until really maybe the last 6, 7, 8 months. With these really, really long petioles obviously comes a big spread. At this stage, I'm not managing this plant at all, apart from growing it on a moss pole. The moss pole makes sure that all of the leaves stay on one side, because obviously I do not want that to spread 360 degrees around the moss pole. That would take up more space than my dining table at this stage. So over the years, I slowly had time to incorporate it into my collection, and I kind of like this. If I would buy a large specimen like this, I wouldn't instantly know where to put it, and that would probably be to the detriment of this plant. I have it under this grow light over there. It is quite busy in this area at the moment because a lot of the plants from my garden have moved in here as well to overwinter, but in spring I'll move some of those back out, and then it actually has a little bit more space to spread. It's right next to the Florida Ghost, and the Florida Ghost has equally large petioles. Because they're quite similar and so on, they kind of gel nicely together, they look good together, and then it doesn't really matter that it spreads so far, because it just spreads into the gaps of the other plant, if that makes sense. But definitely a word of caution, it is a space commitment. If it starts thriving and growing these large mature leaves like these over here, it will take up a bit of space. Not necessarily the leaf in itself, but the petiole. But the petiole is super beautiful and red and has these little ruffles, so I think the petioles in themselves are actually like a desirable thing to look at. So I don't mind the long petioles in this instance, but space is ultimately the most precious thing we've got, and this one likes to hoard quite a lot of it. Now, over those 2 years, I have exposed this plant to various conditions, but it was always inside. I never grew this plant outside or in my greenhouse. It started in the IKEA cabinet with really high light, high humidity. Then it moved into a south-facing window, which would be the least light. Then under this grow light over here, it was in front of my mother grow light for a while. It was in my north-facing window for a while as well. And because it has gone through so many changes in those 2 years, it also changes position quite often, because well, it outgrew the cabinet quite quickly. Then it outgrew this space quite quickly because the leaves were just pushing up against the window, which is never good because it can cause fungal issues and so on. So because of the plant's progression, I also had to progress its setup, and the bottom line here is that it didn't really mind any of them, right? Like it's pretty tolerant to a variety of conditions, from like 50% humidity all the way to 90% humidity, from low natural light to very strong grow light. It kind of just coped with all of it, but from my experience, it responded best to like medium humidity. It does not need the super high humidity, so around 60% humidity and high light from a grow light was in my experience the best conditions for this. It also, as I mentioned before, it was exposed down to 10 degrees Celsius, but it also gets exposed to about 30 degrees Celsius in summer. So it also tolerates a range of temperatures over here. So I think the main thing to look out for with this plant is really light. I think humidity and temperatures won't be such a big issue. Airflow, of course, every plant loves airflow, especially if it's on a moist environment like a moss pile, but light is really the deciding factor over here, whether or not you're going to have success with it. And given that it's variegated, so already naturally challenged in the way that it can photosynthesize, I've definitely noticed that the highlight is preferred. Throughout the years, I can't recall any pest issues. I think there was thrips at the very beginning, I think sometime in year 1. I haven't really had any issues with it recently, but I have also been more thorough in cleaning all of my plants, not just this one in particular. At least once a month, I'm making an effort to take them into the garden and thoroughly shower them. That keeps the plant clean, which helps with photosynthesis, but also kind of just washes off any pests. It doesn't eradicate the pests, but it's kind of my ongoing pest management system to make sure that the pests can't even really take hold of the plant in the first place. I only really start treating them when I visually have pest damage on my plants, but as I mentioned before, that hasn't really happened in a while. But sometimes my brain tricks me. Maybe I think there was maybe a bit of thrips issues in between, but nothing crazy. Like it's not one of those like absolute pest magnets where I feel like I need to stay on top of pest management all the time. Not like an Alocasia frydeg or Philodendron verrucosum. So very, very easy going. I have provided my GT Foliage Focus over the course of at least the first 18 months quite frequently. Most recently, I started using a few worm castings actually, or worm casting granulates. I started incorporating them into my potting mix, and I also put them on top of my moss piles so it kind of waters through. But it's still early days for me testing this, so I'll update you more on my success in using worm castings as an organic nutrient when I have gathered quite enough evidence. But definitely the Foliage Focus has been working its magic over here yet again. I always use a weak dilution with every watering, and then once a month I thoroughly flush everything out. That also flushes out any mineral buildup. And I think that's it. I mean, we have followed the plant's journey over the last 2 years, so hopefully these updates speak for themselves. Let me know in the comments down below, do you grow Florida Beauty? Do you maybe grow Florida Ghost? Which one is your favorite? What is your experience with this plant? Is it easy to grow this plant wherever you live as well? Let me know in the comments down below, or not just me, let everybody else know in the comments down below so we can learn from each other. Please make sure you give the video a thumbs up, leave a nice comment down below, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye!